investigate a little better.
Burgess and Arabella's mother, Samantha Delcamp, were both charged with criminal homicide this afternoon for Arabella's death.
Welcome or welcome back, and thanks for being here. I'm Cassie, and this is A Wicked World. Now, if you haven't checked out A Wicked World on Patreon yet, and you want to have access to over 60 exclusive videos with new ones being added each and every month, then make sure you do that now using the link in the description box below. The story I have for you today is about a little girl who was killed by her mother's boyfriend. But her mother also had more involvement than she was willing to admit to. This is the story of Arabella Parker. Arabella Margaret Parker was born in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania on September 20th, 2016 to her mother, Samantha Delcamp, and her father, Carl Parker. She was affectionately nicknamed Shortcake and had 3 significantly older siblings who adored her. Arabella loved her family, giving hugs and kisses, dancing, and being the center of attention. She also loved ice cream, playing outside in her electric car, and baby dolls of all sorts. Arabella's mother, Samantha, was only 19 years old when she met 39-year-old Carl in March of 2015. The couple fell in love insanely fast and were engaged a month later. However, they would never end up getting married because Carl was sent back to prison on a parole violation in mid-2019. This came after he'd been arrested for a DUI in November of 2018, and during that time, both Samantha and Arabella were in the car with him. The reason why Carl had been on parole in the first place was because he had been involved in a robbery back in 1999, for which he had served 13 years in jail. It wasn't long after Carl went back to prison that he and Samantha broke up. And by May of 2019, there was a Child Protective Service case opened up alleging that Samantha was abusing Arabella. Then in June of 2019, Samantha met 18-year-old Jared Burgess online. Just months later, she moved herself and her daughter into an apartment with him and his other 4 male roommates. This living arrangement was only temporary, however, and in August of 2019, the couple, along with Arabella, moved to their own apartment located on West Shamokin Street in Trevorton, which was about 10 miles away from Sunbury, where they previously lived. It wasn't long after Samantha moved in with Jared that she became financially dependent on him, as she didn't have a job herself. And Jared had a criminal record too, because of course he did. In July of 2018, about a month before he turned 18, he had been arrested and charged with simple assault, felony robbery, theft, conspiracy to commit theft, receiving stolen property, and felony conspiracy to commit robbery while inflicting threat of immediate bodily injury. 2 months after that, he was charged with harassment and assault after he banged his then pregnant girlfriend's head into the car's dashboard. Now, when Arabella's grandmother, Bonnie, saw her and Samantha at a 4th of July party, she noticed bruising on the mother and daughter's bodies. When Bonnie tried to ask Samantha what was going on, her daughter told her that it was nothing and she didn't need to worry about it. But Bonnie knew better, and she, along with other members of her family, began calling Child Protective Services. The grandmother even tried to gain custody of little Arabella, but would be denied by a judge in September of that year. Frustrated that no one would listen, Bonnie went on Facebook and posted about how Jared was mistreating Samantha and Arabella and begged Samantha to leave him. But that wouldn't stop it from happening. It only made it worse. By this point, Jared was hitting both Samantha and Arabella on a regular basis. He also sometimes made them march down the hallway when they wouldn't listen to him. Jared additionally refused to let Samantha use her phone or leave their apartment. Things escalated even further when on October 6th, Jared picked Arabella up, threw her into a chair, smacked her in the face, kicked and punched her in the back, then stomped on her stomach. From there, he threw her onto the bed where he punched her again. After that, he tossed Arabella into the bathtub and turned on the water. According to Samantha, he was trying to drown her daughter, but she didn't do anything because he had also assaulted her and wouldn't give her her phone or let her leave. A few days later, on October 10th, Bonnie, who was very worried about her granddaughter, went over to the home to check on things. However, neither Jared or Samantha would let her inside and slammed the door in her face. So the grandmother called Child Services and the local police department, but neither of them would help. When she called authorities from another county, they did go out to the residence. But when they saw Arabella, they claimed that she was in good shape. They would, however, later admit that the little girl was never checked over for any marks or bruises. But according to Samantha, officers did see bruises on her daughter, but they hadn't done anything and didn't ask the 3-year-old any questions. The mother also had not done a single thing to let police know what was going on inside the home, and never attempted to get any help for her or her daughter. Then later that same day, 911 was called to the home where Arabella and her mother lived. It was reported that the 3-year-old was having unexplained seizures. When first responders first arrived, they had no idea what was going on with Arabella. They did, however, notice bruising all over her body. The little girl was rushed to the hospital, but since Jared and Samantha claimed that they did not know what had caused her seizures, medical staff did not know the severity of her condition at first. Once a CT scan revealed that Arabella had serious swelling to her brain, she went into emergency surgery where doctors tried to make the swelling go down. Her injuries were so severe that portions of her brain were actually already dead by that time, and they had to be surgically removed. After the operation, Arabella was placed on life support, and she was given only a 10% chance of survival. The little girl also had at least 44 bruises all over her body, bruised lungs, internal abdominal bleeding, 11 broken ribs, collarbone fractures, as well as abrasions and bleeding from her private area. Her injuries were all in various stages of healing. Little Arabella would stay in the hospital for weeks, and in mid-November, she suffered a stroke and additional bleeding to her brain. At that time, doctors informed her family that there was nothing further that could be done, and so she was taken off life support. Remarkably, she would continue to breathe on her own for an additional 48 hours, however, ended up passing away on November 22nd. The day after Arabella had been brought to the hospital, on October 11th, Jared was placed under arrest, and he was charged with CA. At that time, authorities were considering the little girl's mother, Samantha, to also be a victim. According to Samantha, Jared told her that it would be okay if Arabella didn't make it, because they could just go on to have a child of their own. He also informed her that she better not blame him for anything that happened, and if everything got to be too much, they could just take themselves out of the world together. Samantha was insistent that she had nothing to do with her daughter's deadly injuries, and that she had merely just been a victim of Jared herself. So while Arabella was still in the hospital fighting for her life, Samantha appeared on the Steve Wilkos show. During the episode, Samantha claimed that she had not left Jared because she was so fearful of him, and she somehow was able to pass a lie detector test that Steve gave her. But that didn't let her off the hook. Instead, Steve blamed her too, saying that she had been the one responsible for leaving her daughter in such a dangerous situation.
I don't need a test to tell me that you failed your daughter. I don't need a test to tell me that when it came to your own daughter who's fighting for life, that you're a coward. I don't need a test to tell me that you're one of the most miserable mothers.
Thank you.
You're
Now, according to one of Arabella's older sisters, Amanda, Samantha had said in the past that she wished she had never had her daughter. Samantha's mother, Bonnie, said that on the Monday prior to Arabella being rushed to the hospital, Jared told her that he was going to fuck up the rest of her life and she would never be the same. At the time, she had no idea what he meant, but she found out on October 10th. After hearing what Samantha had to say on the Steve Wilkos show, investigators determined that her statements were inconsistent. And on October 25th, she was placed under arrest for child endangerment. Once Arabella passed away a little less than a month later, both Samantha and Jared's charges were upgraded to homicide. Other charges were additionally added, including obstruction in a CA case, making false reports to law enforcement, and aggravated and simple assault.
Samantha, what do you want to say about all of this? Do you have anything you want to say? Anything. It's your time to get the word out. But in the courtroom, Delcamp had plenty to say to Judge John Gembick. She said Burgess treated her like a prisoner and she was not allowed to leave. She said she desperately wants to attend Arabella's funeral and, quote, "I was there trying to protect my daughter. I was the prisoner. I was the only one there for my daughter." Meanwhile, Burgess said he had nothing to do with Arabella's death and Delcamp was the one who caused the abuse.
This is all hearsay and to a drug addict and lying piece of
You said it's all Samantha.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything?
So you read the paper?
Yeah.
That right there. It tells you.
According to Samantha, on the evening of October 10th, she had been in the kitchen doing dishes, while Arabella was in the dining room picking at her food, not wanting to eat her dinner. And suddenly, she heard Jared yelling at the little girl. When she went to see what was going on, she found her boyfriend pressing Arabella up against the wall by her throat. Samantha claimed that she tried to stop him and yelled at him, but he pushed her down, knocking off her glasses. When she was then able to grab her glasses and get back up, she witnessed Jared throw Arabella about 2 to 3 feet across the room. And while the bottom half of Arabella's body landed on her Minnie Mouse couch, her head hit the floor hard. This cracked her skull and damaged her brain, causing her to seize. The mother described Arabella as flopping around on the floor like a fish. According to Samantha, she begged Jared to call 911 at this point. But instead, he decided to call his mother, Christy Lynn Willis, who worked as a nurse's aide. He didn't want to call emergency services because he was afraid of getting in trouble due to all the bruising on Arabella's body from days prior. Phone records would indicate that Jared had spoken to his mother on the phone 4 times prior to paramedics being called. During these conversations, they discussed how they would keep Jared out of trouble. Christy then told her son that she would come to the home and lie to authorities, saying that she'd been there the entire time. And it wasn't until after Christy did arrive at their apartment that 911 was finally called, about an hour after Arabella had originally begun seizing. Samantha's phone would show that during this time, someone had searched what to do if your child is having a seizure. Due to her involvement with trying to hide what had really happened to little Arabella, Jared's mother was also arrested, and she was charged with felony obstruction, false reporting, and hindering apprehension by providing false information to law enforcement. She would end up being found guilty on these charges, and she was sentenced to 17 months to 17 years behind bars. Jared's trial began in November of 2021, and by now he admitted to what he'd done to Arabella to cause her head injury, and this confession was played for the jury. However, during his trial, he would also say, "I smacked her, but not hard or excessive, maybe 5 times. I grabbed her by the shoulders when she wasn't eating. I didn't plan for her to die. I hope she forgives me. I didn't forcibly throw her to hurt her, but I should have walked her the extra couple of steps to put her on the couch." He additionally claimed that he had always been close to the 3-year-old, saying, "She loved me and I loved her." Jared was found guilty on his charges, and he would later be sentenced to 24 to 50 years behind bars. Samantha went to trial in May of 2022, and her defense team tried to say that she had not removed her daughter from the situation because she had been too terrified of Jared. But in the end, she too was found guilty on her charges, and she would be sentenced to 12 to 25 years in prison. 2 candlelight vigils were held for Arabella on the night of November 19th. One in Trevorton, where she used to live, and one in Danville, close to the hospital where the little girl was being treated. Arabella Parker's funeral was held a little over a month after her death, on December 28, 2019, and she was cremated. Her ashes were then distributed amongst her family members. And in a shocking twist, Arabella's older sister, Amanda Parker, and her boyfriend, Ernest Reynolds, ended up being arrested and charged with endangering the welfare of children. This came after their 6-month-old child was denied medical attention upon receiving a head injury and a broken skull. Text messages between the two showed that they had discussed lying to medical staff about their daughter's injuries. Amanda was the one who had said about Arabella's death, "I am lost for words at how anyone could ever harm such a sweet, innocent child." Thank you to all the patrons of A Wicked World. Now, there's even more of A Wicked World on Patreon, so check it out on patreon.com/awickedworld, or use the Patreon app. You'll have access to exclusive videos each month and more. Any support truly helps to make sure the victims are never forgotten, and to highlight the shortcomings of society associated with each case. Do you have a suggestion for a story you'd like to see me cover? If so, send me an email to awickedworldtruecrime@gmail.com.